as a director at Aberdeen Asset Management, as a member of the Better Off Together movement out of Kensington in leafy London, he appeared in the summary of the Today programme news denouncing and defaming Rosneft and the Russian manipulation of Rosneft when we talked only yesterday about the merger between BP and Rosneft that took place 18 months ago and the unacceptable face of capitalism that is the ownership of Lonrho and BP. Lonrho has owned BP and all of its subsidiaries like Centrica and so many others across the globe for decades. Since Tiny Rowlands left the internment camp on the Isle of Man in the middle of World War II. He was the founder of that vicious organisation that was there to steal the assets from sub-Saharan Africa. Rifkin was exposed as an overlapping director with Sir John Anthony Chilcot in the videos that Gordon Bowden and George Lees made a month ago. They are sensational videos because what we're talking about there is the inquest chair for the Arms to Iraq scandal and the Foreign Secretary in 2002 being overlapping directors at Abraxas, which is based in Earl Grey Street in London, in Edinburgh, and is close to Lothian Road, where all of the massive virtual oil and gas frauds were perpetrated by the Cairn Empire. Okay, and what we heard discussed in the next article on Radio 4 this morning was the involvement of law in criminality. Now, John and I have made videos on the involvement of, in relatively petty crimes of the Law Society and people like Naismith and Stuart Fair in Scotland, who are advisors to the Scottish Government but are involved in laundering. And Stuart Fair is connected to the same Finchley boiler rooms that have been used for money laundering since Mrs. Thatcher was in power. Okay? So there's an emphasis on corrupted law enforcement, the involvement of police. We talked yesterday and the day before on the Sunday, this weekend, of the asset stripping of British police by money launderers who are actually working for Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary. Zoe Billingham, we revealed the links to prominent politicians who are Labour politicians. Okay, we don't want to waste time on that. We also talked in all of the videos we've made recently about the life of Greg Hallett, the role of Peter Williams QC, New Zealand's highest ranking law enforcer, in the funding of the IRA networks in Australasia, the persecution and death threats to Greg Hallett that he received when he lived in New Zealand, and subsequently the cancer that Peter Williams contracted, and Greg Hallett was prepared to confront that corrupted lawyer in the law courts with absolute truths that silenced him. Yeah? Now, so this morning when I tune into Radio 4, you find that Australia's in the news again. And I revealed a few months ago that Australia had something shameful on its records when I revealed what Quentin Bryce, the Governor-General, who is more powerful, according to Greg Hallett, than any elected official in Australia. She earned £360,000 a year to be a diplomat, and I learned from her the identity of Mr. Bean. Now, they made a joke about Mr. Bean at the opening of the London 2012 Olympics with a cynical gesture showing a man called, what's the name of the actor in Blackadder?
Rowan Atkinson.
Who played Mr. Bean, a pathetic figure,
Yep.
but was brought onto the world stage like Her Royal Highness, who was pictured with James Bond jumping out of an aeroplane under a parachute. That was an actress who played the Queen, but the Queen watched it from the podium where she was sat next to Kofi Annan and all the world leaders. Who's that? Ban Ki-moon was there, all the dignitaries that helped with the Olympic fundraising and the Olympic profiteering. that took place in the HSBC building in Canary Wharf. Okay? So the joke is, and it was revealed by the Governor-General, Quentin Bryce, in Australia, that Mr. Bean, the real historic character, was the war correspondent for Gallipoli. And every Anzac, including the middle school teacher that I met on the weekend, knows that Winston Churchill botched the campaign in Gallipoli. And now that John Patterson and I understand the mission in every global war is to cull the poor people, it makes perfect sense. Quentin Bryce makes a little video clip. It's all covered on my website. And when I reveal...
George, just give your website out, please, because I'm going to stop this.
George Lees /Revelations. And if you look up World War II, the elite scandal in the index, or Global Wars, the elite scandal, you'll begin to see the gravity and the magnitude of the joke that was made at the warbed's expense at the opening ceremony of the